Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this or listening to this. I hope you are having an amazing day. I feel like I always bumble over that bit of the podcast, but yeah, I hope you're all having a lovely day. So, if you are watching this podcast on either watching the video on Spotify or on YouTube and you're like, Siobhan, your hair looks damp, it's because it is. Like, my hair takes a ridiculously long time to air dry, and I'm going to be completely honest, I'm going to be asked. Like, using a dryer to dry my hair today. Which if my hair dries, if my hairdresser is listening to this, you didn't hear that. Anyway, so the reason why my hair is damp is because me and John went to it was his birthday present because he's turning 29 on Wednesday. And yeah, I am the older one in the relationship because I'm nearly 32. I'm 32 this August. But yeah, he's turning 29 on Wednesday. So we decided to, well, I booked his birthday present for this Sunday because we're always like passing ships during the week. And we went to one of those like float tanks, like the sensory deprivation tanks, where you just like float in there and like eat. Well, it can be dark, but I had the lights on because like I'm I'm a child and I'm scared of the dark. I just don't think I'd like that. But yeah, so I had it with like the lights on, but I still kept my eyes closed throughout it. And honestly, 10 out of 10 would recommend. Like, I won't be doing it like every month or anything like that. It would probably be like a once a year thing, or maybe every like 6 months thing or something like that. Probably not even that. But I absolutely loved it. Like, I cannot believe how it managed to switch my brain off, because I'm definitely sure I've mentioned this in the podcast before, but I have ADHD and my brain is constantly going at me. And to be honest, when I first got into the tank and like set myself up, the door, I guess you can call it, the lid, I think it's more of a lid, the lid of the pod was like shut. And I closed my eyes, my head just went like 1,000 miles per hour. But then as I got into it, it just became really quiet, and I'm sure I fell asleep at one point, and I woke up with like my mouth open, like, which I do sleep like that, by the way. Like, it's just so glamorous the way that I sleep. But yeah, I sleep like I'm catching flies. So I woke up like that. But honestly, like, it was just amazing. And I was just like, you know what? I was even thinking when I was in there, because my brain did go through thoughts every now and again. I get like a little thought. And then when I was in there, I was like, you know what? My dad would love this, because it's such nice warm water. You have all like the relaxing lights. It's dead quiet, dead chill. You have earplugs in, so like the water's not getting your ears. You just kind of like float about. But then after a while, I know when I first started in there, I was kind of like bobbing and like turning a little bit in the tank, because I was quite tiny compared to the side of the tank. And I was like kind of like touching the walls, like the side of the tank. But then I like ended up in the middle and was so bloody still. I'm guessing that's because of the sheer amount of salt like in the tank itself that makes you float. But yeah, 10 out of 10 would recommend. I absolutely loved it. And yeah, I would love to go back as well. So we are also in, I think it's week 3 or week 4 of my prep now. It's like, I'm not even that far in, it's already blurring into one, because I'm just head down ticking the boxes. If you watched my my flub to fab on Instagram, you would have seen that I had like a little bit of a bump in the road this week on prep, because on Tuesday my back went again. Now, it's not as severe as like the first time that it went. I'm already back training legs. I trained legs yesterday. I switched around the session. I went light on it. And yeah, just got some movement to it, still doing my cardio, still doing my steps. Whereas when I first did it, like, I had like I had, what is it called, a hot water bottle just on my back like the whole day, and I couldn't walk. I didn't get my steps that day when I first did it. I think for like the first couple of days I didn't get my steps because I was really struggling to walk. I was actually struggling to coach my clients, whereas this hasn't had an effect like in terms of coaching clients. I mean, some of my clients that I've known have been like, oh, you know what, I'll lift the weights today, I'll get the weights, but it hasn't stopped me from doing anything at all, which is great. And I mean, in yoga, I mean, to be fair, it was a hard yoga session today that I went to, because I go into yoga on a Sunday just because, again, it helps with recovery. So, and when I went in there today, like, it was a harder yoga session. Like, it was a lot of like core work, a lot of holding, like using your muscles, all that jazz. I did have to take some breaks during that because of that. I can feel it in my back and I don't want to push too hard. But other than that, like everything's brilliant. You know, but like be a little bit slower than what I usually am. But yeah, it's not stopping me from doing anything at all, which is great. So hopefully, like by this time next week, it won't be an issue. But yeah, other than that, that's the summary from me. And let's get into the main part of the podcast. So, episode 24, and this is the last installment of the Mindset series, which is going to be all about boundary setting. Now, boundary setting is something that most people struggle with, like, and it's something that I do see time and time again when I do speak to women. When I ask them about like setting boundaries, it does become quite a bit of a sticking point because it is something that is uncomfortable when we first start off, especially if we're not used to setting those boundaries as well. Now, if you've ever felt guilty for prioritising your workouts, if you've ever had people question your food choices, I've had sassy comments from family members, I've definitely had questions. I remember once I went to this like Indian meal with John, his dad, and his family, and I was on prep for my photo shoot in the last October when I got relieved that. And I remember like nipping to the toilet and I came back and John was kind of like, I don't even know if he whispered it to me or he text messaged me, I can't remember. But it was just like, we've just been speaking about like prep and why you're not eating. Because I was eating, but I didn't have starters. I literally just had like this kebab thing for my main and that's it. Whereas obviously everyone else was like drinking, there was having starters, they were having poppadom, desserts, all that jazz. Whereas I was like, no, I'm just gonna have this like little bit of meat, this kebab thing that I trapped in. And then when I got back and then I had my food, that's when they was like, well, what are you doing? So they were like asking those questions, and I know it weren't coming from a bad place, but sometimes it does feel uncomfortable when you are setting those boundaries, when you are different, when you're acting different from what the group is, it does feel uncomfortable, and this is very, very normal. It's the way that we're built as and the way that we are as humans, because at the end of the day we are pack animals, so we do have a few mental resistances to things that don't follow the herd, like to put it in that way. So if you've ever let your fitness goals take a back seat to work, family, or just like social pressures, social events as well, this episode is going to be for you, because at the end of the day, if you're not setting boundaries and if you don't set boundaries, your fitness journey will always take a hit. Like, it might not be at the start, but it will do at some point when you need to set those boundaries and you fail to do so. And this is because you'll keep on letting other people's opinions dictate your choices. You'll keep on feeling frustrated that you can't keep consistent, and you'll keep on putting everyone else first whilst your own goals get put aside as well. So today I'm going to show you how to set boundaries around your time, energy, and commitments. And at the end of the day, this is going to be one of the key points, because if you want to build a business, if you want to have a really great relationship, there's going to be times when you have to put boundaries in place around them. So, for example, if your friends want to see you every single weekend, but you haven't seen your other half in months, you're going to have to set a boundary with your friends to see your other half, otherwise your other half isn't going to be your other half much longer. So let's jump into it. So why do people struggle with boundaries? Because let's be honest, most people struggle with boundaries, and why does it happen? So, as I was saying before about humans being pack animals, we are conditioned to be people pleasers, because at the end of the day, it's normal. If we are not following the crowd, if we are not doing similar things to what our pack is doing, i.e. the closest people around us, we do end up feeling like uncomfortable because it's not quote unquote normal, and we don't want to upset, disappoint, or just generally inconvenience other people as well. And we end up feeling guilty for prioritizing ourselves, and as I mentioned, just feeling uncomfortable for doing something different to the status quo. And society also glorifies us for being busy and self-sacrificing, whilst not putting ourselves first as well. And this is something that we're just taught. I wouldn't even say like even when we get out of high school, it's something that we're taught like young age, like being busy is good, like working all the time is good, like being tired all the time is good, when it's not. Putting everyone else first besides yourself. This is something that you might have watched growing up. I watched my mum put everyone else before her And honestly, knowing the story of her life and the way that it ended, it's just kind of like, fucking hell. If you could have seen that story played out, I know my mum would have been more selfish. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because being selfish is not a bad thing. Sometimes it can be, depending on how you do it. But sometimes pouring into your own cup is so, so, so important. One of the reasons why, in terms of like not wanting to upset, disappoint, and inconvenience people, is because we fear judgment. Again, going back to that pat mentality, and we fear judgment, whether that's from co-workers making comments about meal prepping, or going to the gym, or not being able to go out on nights out if your co-workers go on nights out, the family saying you're obsessed and, oh, is this healthy? We worry a lot, and personally I think too much about what others think, because if you think about it, how many times do you skip your workout because a friend or a family member just suddenly sprung plans onto you about going out, and you end up skipping the gym and going out with them? Or maybe you ate something off plan because you didn't want to be difficult when you was out with friends or family at a restaurant. Or maybe again, like your other half was going like, oh, go on, like just abide, it won't matter. Or maybe your mother-in-law has cooked something for you, again, you don't want to be like rude by having that thing as well. This isn't about willpower. It isn't at all. It's about setting those boundaries. And at the end of the day, like again, going back to the start, like if you don't set those boundaries, other people will decide your priorities for you. And at the end of the day, I mean, speaking personally, I want to decide my priorities. I want to control my life. I don't want anyone else controlling my life. And that's why I do set boundaries. I set boundaries around my fitness. I was talking to a client yesterday because we're trying to find like a place to put her into to have her PT session. I think like not next week, not this week coming, but well, not this week that you're listening to, but the week after, because on the system that I get her to book her PT slots in, she couldn't find a slot for her. So I took a screenshot. I asked her when her shift was, and took a screenshot of my Google Calendar, and I was like, "Does this time work for you?" And she was just kind of like, "Yes, it does, but you have training there." And I said, "As long as I can get that 2 hours in on that day, which I could just move the block down and still get it in before the gym closes. That's completely fine." But then, if for example, like someone else would have wanted that day, I wouldn't have been able to get my training done. That session wouldn't get done. I'd have to find somewhere else to put that person in, because my training is a non-negotiable. Like nothing is getting in the way of my training. And I do it from 11:30 to 8:15. I don't do any later, and I do not do any earlier. Obviously, except on weekends. At weekends, I do 8:15 when the gym opens, or just give it a little buffer for everyone to get settled down. 8:15 to 2 o'clock. That is the max that I will do on Saturdays. And the reason being is that I need to get my training done. And I'm setting a boundary about that. There is no ifs and buts. It's getting done. If you're not setting boundaries, other people will set them for you. So I also want to go over the role of boundaries and why we have them. So firstly is setting boundaries with your time. So just like I was saying before about how I set boundaries with my time, your workouts are non-negotiable appointments. Like they are not optional. This is something that I really, really stand by, is that nothing is getting in the way of my training, unless like I'm injured. Whereas, for example, this week I didn't do up because it was hurting to stand up, but I did all the rest of my other training because I could. But again, like for example, if I'm not injured, nothing is getting in the way of my appointment. If, for example, like a friend wants to do something at a certain time, I'm like, no, sorry, I've got something scheduled. Or I can turn around to a friend or someone who knows me and go, no, I can't do that time, I'm training, and they'll get it. They'll get it. They'll be like, all right, okay, Sean's training. They know that I take my training seriously. Now, if you've not always been a gym person, if you've not been serious about your health and fitness, and then you suddenly start setting these boundaries around your time, around training, your friends and your family and people that know you're probably going to be like, and like, that seems odd. Like, oh, she's not serious about it. I can push her a little bit, and I can get her to change her mind on that. Whereas that's where the discomfort comes. It's more uncomfortable at setting boundaries because people are not used to it. And then once they get used to it, it's not even a thing. You just go, oh no, sorry, I can't eat there, so I'm just going to have a Diet Coke. And they'll be like, all right. Well, usually what will happen is when you're with friends, and I say this out of experience, is that when you've got friends and you've got good friends, which I'm hoping they are, is when you do start regularly setting these boundaries and when people understand that you're serious about your fitness and your nutrition, and you turn around to them and say, oh no, so I won't be able to eat there, like I'm not bothered going and just having a Diet Coke, but I'll probably have to get something from somewhere else. friends will probably turn around and go, oh no, where would you be able to eat? Let's find somewhere where you can eat. And that's completely, go do that. And I know that because I've been through that myself, where I've had to go through that uncomfortableness of, no, I can't eat there, no, I can't eat there, and people going, oh, can't you just take a day off? I've had to go through all that bullshit. I've had to go through sitting in an office with people eating ice creams around me going, as I'm there with my like chicken and rice. Or well, it wasn't chicken and rice at that time. I think I was like deep in cottage cheese fascination at that time when I was in when I was working office life. But yeah, I've had to do that and just had to roll my eyes and been like, I am choosing it. I want these results, and having to say these affirmations to myself, I guess, constantly about why I'm doing this, and having to deal with people being knobs in the background. And I say that in the nicest way. I know they don't mean it out of like any kind of like bad intentions, but it's really annoying. And I definitely wouldn't do that to anyone else. Another thing too is stop saying yes to things that don't align to your goals. Because if you're, for example, in a deficit and like your friends have invited you out to go out, probably with a fitness journey it won't match up. Or if you do go out, or like set a limit on how many drinks you're going to have. Again, don't say yes to things that don't align with your goals, because yeah, maybe a couple of drinks, fair enough, you can get away with them, but especially being like, I mean, I'm 5 foot, so if you're a small human, being able to like drink ridiculous amounts of cocktails, that's going to add up quickly. You're going to end up gaining body fat, or you're going to end up pushing yourself out of deficit, and you won't be happy when it comes to like your next checking day. So yeah, don't say yes to things that you actually don't want. Like again, stand firm on your boundaries. And again, making sure that you're blocking out time for your workouts and meal prep and recovery. At this moment in time, Jonathan does a meal prep because he likes cooking. Crazy person. I do have boring meals now, I'm involved in a meal plan. I live for my cream and rice and my oats. But when I lived on my own, it literally was like air fried chicken, air fried sweet potatoes, veg done in the oven, like, or done in a pan, just just boil, like whatever was quickest, whatever I could get a pan, just do it all in one go. I schedule this in like it used to be on a Sunday, where I do all my meal prep and I do all my shopping. And a really good example of this is one that I mentioned just before. And if anyone asks you to meet or to go out or to do something during, what is your blocked out time for meal prep, for work, for your training, for whatever that is, all you need to do is turn around and just say, I have something scheduled, but I'm free after this, or I'm free this time, or I can't do this today because I've got plans, but I can do this. You don't have to elaborate. You don't have to say you're going to the gym. But I guess I have to. They'll see that weakness and they'll know that they won't have to push that much in order for you to change your mind on that. Whereas if you're like, no, I'm doing this, I choose to do this, and I'm really serious about it, not to say it in like an arsehole way, but say it in a firm way, just like how I turn around to like friends or even clients that want a certain time when I'm training, like, no, I'm training during this time, I can't do this time. Like that is it. And I take that seriously, just because essentially I wouldn't tell my clients to do anything that I don't do myself. Boundaries with food and social settings. So this is usually a tricky one, as I mentioned before with like the table when I went out for an India with John and his family. It's something that I have experienced, not even just now, as someone who's going back into bodybuilding, being a bodybuilder, prepping for a show previously, being a coach. It's also something that I had to deal with when I wasn't even a coach, when I worked in an office. Like I had to deal with eating a little bit different, and I've honestly, I've always been like, I wouldn't really call myself weird about food. Like, I'm not going to go down that route, but I've always been the odd one. I've never really fit in, so I guess that makes it easier in that sense. But I've been veggie, I've been vegan, I've been on every diet under the sun, that my friends and my family are just kind of like, oh, right, it's just another weird thing that she's doing. Whereas, it's not a weird thing that I'm doing, counting calories and being on prep and following a meal plan, but my family is used to it now. But obviously, every now and again, I do have to deal with those uncomfortable situations where people ask questions, people push you, all of that jazz. I have to go through it from time to time. No matter how much someone knows you or how long someone knows you, every now and again, people will test your boundaries. Again, that's normal, and it's getting used to being able to uphold those boundaries as well. So, for example, let's say if you are out to dinner with like a group of friends and people ask you why you're doing a certain thing, why you have to eat at that certain restaurant, why you've made a change of plans to go to a different restaurant, remember that you don't actually owe anyone an explanation for eating the way that supports you go. You don't. you can just literally, like, let's say you already have plans to go to Nando's, and you go to Nando's and you get a butterfly chicken with some broccoli and with like the rainbow coleslaw. That's one of like the most low calorie dishes. Dead fucking easy to track him. And then someone asks like, why haven't you got any chips? Why haven't you got this, that, and the other? Instead of going like, I'm on a diet, or I'm counting my calories, instead of doing that, because that'll just like grab hold of attention, which is not bad. It's not bad to be on a diet at all. But essentially, when you start saying like, oh, I'm on a diet, this, that, and the other, it kind of like everyone suddenly becomes a nutritionist. And again, I know because of experience. So instead of almost inviting that attention that you might not want, all you can say is like, I just don't fancy chips. Like, this is what I'm wanting today, or like this is actually what I choose to want. And they'll be like, all right, okay, fair enough. Or I'm actually not that hungry today. And they'll be like, all right, okay, fair enough. And then you just leave it there. You don't have to go into this like essentially sob story about how you're on a diet and how awful it is, like, because it's not, because at the end of the day you're choosing it. And so yeah, that's definitely a huge tip on eating out in social situations, is don't draw attention to it. Now there might be a case where it's unavoidable and attention is drawn to you, like when I went out with John's family for that Indian, they all had poppadoms, they all had starters, they all had desserts, and I literally had like the smallest plate of like kebab meat. It was really obvious that I was restricting the amount that I was eating. Diet Coke, everyone else was drinking, all that jazz. And when they asked me questions, I just said like, oh, I'm doing it for a photo shoot, or or in the past I've been like, oh, I'm just on a diet, I'm just trying to like, I'm working with the coach at the moment, I'm doing a diet. And if people go like, oh, if you don't have anything, you haven't got anything on you, it's like, oh, thank you, but I am really working on myself, so I'm trying really hard, or I'm not that far off where I want to be, but I've still got to keep on going to the very end. Like, you don't really have to, and even then, just going back to like, I'm choosing to do this and I'm really enjoying myself. Like, it's hard, but I'm enjoying the challenge. And if you don't turn it into a sob story, people don't test it, because they'll be like, all right, okay, actually, it's happy what she's doing, moving on, that's fine. And I tend to, as well, is that what happens if you do go into the fact that you're on a diet, is people start talking about their own fitness journeys and how they find it so difficult and this, that, and the other. Again, it's going to sound really odd, but I try and like get away from those conversations, because I don't want, not because like I don't care or I'm being an ass or anything like that. It's not. It's because I don't want them to feel that I am judging them because they're having whatever food they want, and I've got like this small plate, or I'm tracking my food, or I've not had, everyone else has had chips but I've not had chips. I don't want them to feel bad in any way, because at the end of the day, like, my journey is my journey. I don't want it to affect anyone else. It shouldn't affect everyone else. Everyone else has got different goals, different journeys, all that fun stuff. So yeah, and it shouldn't affect other people. Speaking of other people and opinions, stop letting other people's opinions dictate how you act and what you put in your body as well. And if friends and family pressure you for eating off plan, remember that their discomfort is not your responsibility. So they start being a bit sassy about it, just reaffirm to yourself that that's their problem, not yours. Because if you're working with a coach who generally gives a shit about you, genuinely gives a shit about you, they won't have you do anything that's going to compromise your health mentally and physically. And if you've been working with them on relationship issues, you probably won't be tracking it, probably won't be that strict. But yeah, like, remember that if they have an issue, it's their problem, not yours. Trust in what your coach said. If you've got a plan of action with your coach, essentially follow the plan, tick the boxes, all that fun stuff. So, for example, if someone says, come on, won't bite, won't hurt, you can just say, I'm good. You don't need to have a justification. You don't need to have a reason why. You can just be like, I'm good. I don't want it. I'm not that hungry. And yes, some of the things might be porky pies. It might be. But at the end of the day, again, you're sticking up for yourself, and it's not a bad lie to tell a porky pie like, oh, I'm okay, thanks, I don't want it, or I'm really not that hungry, I'm happy, thanks. Or no, this is more than enough for me. Another thing on boundaries as well is boundaries with work and stress, because this is another one, a common one that comes up quite a lot. With work, I mean, it does depend on the person, because being self-employed, I do have boundaries with my work, but I guess with my boundaries, it is more flexible than, say, someone who works 9 to 5. If you work 9 to 5, and this is I mean, I know there's sometimes where you do have to do overtime. I completely understand that, because I've been there. I've been there working till 2 a.m. on a design document that needs to be done the next morning, and I still have to be in the office at 9. I get that, but when it's like every single day, or when it's a lot. Like, it's not just like the one a month thing or in every blue moon thing. When it's a lot and constant, this is where you need to set boundaries. And I've done it before where I've ended up on the side of what most people fear of getting let go. And I didn't get let go. I got put on garden leave and I had to choose to leave. And it wasn't a very nice situation because I stuck up for myself and I set boundaries. So I completely get it how people have that fear. However, the place where I worked wasn't a very nice place. Yeah, that's the most extreme example. Like, that can happen. It did happen to me. It was a horrible situation, but I will tell you right now, sticking up for myself and setting those boundaries was the best thing I ever did. It was horrible when I was going through it because I was really fucking scared. I was like, oh my god, am I going to get another job, pay my bills, and I did. Literally in a month, I got another job. So that time, even though it was really fucking scary, it was the best thing that I ever did because I ended up working with an incredible company and meeting some really good people and having like a really good rest of my design career. But yes, yeah, I completely understand where the kind of worry comes from saying no to your employer. And well, not necessarily saying no, but putting boundaries in place with your time. I completely get it. But your health, your mental health and your physical health, I promise you, is worth so much more. And I can say that going through it, coming out the other side, going through what a lot of people tend to fear in with sticking up for themselves and setting boundaries in the workplace. And I promise you, like, I would make that same decision over and over again. Actually, I'd do it earlier. I'd do it a lot fucking earlier because the amount of time I wasted for a company that didn't give a shit about me is just ridiculous. So yeah, have that as like your little motivational chat if you're doing that and if you're overcommitting, overworking for a company that let's be honest, will replace you with another person the day after you leave. So yeah, overworking and overcommitting does lead to burnout, which kills consistency both in terms of your training and your nutrition. So learn to say no to things that drain your energy, whether that's regarding your work, whether that's regarding outside of work as well. Learn to say no that things that aren't like filling up your cup. And remember that prioritizing self makes you better in every area of life. If you by prioritizing yourself and taking that time away from work, prioritizing yourself and setting boundaries around work makes you show up better when you are working. It also makes you a better partner. It makes you a better boss. It makes you a better employee as well because you have more room to put more energy into work. It actually, there's a lot of research that it helps you be more productive as well because a lot of people are like, oh, well, I need to work double the amount of time to get double the amount of work done. Actually, no, it doesn't work like that. More time working doesn't mean more work done. Usually the opposite, because a lot of people spend like those 16 hours working and 8 of the hours, or like at least 6 of the hours, to spend fucking about on the phone or staring at the computer, not actually doing anything. Whereas actually, if you productive, you probably won't even have to work the 8 hours. So again, like looking after yourself and prioritizing yourself will help you be better in every single way. And if you're a parent as well, it helps you show up better to parent your kids better, but also set the example that you want them to see. Because I'm going to guess that if you are a parent and you have a little one, you don't want them to look at you burnt out, working all the time, not looking after health, not looking after fitness, not looking after the mental health. You don't want them looking at that and going, okay, that's normal, this is what I need to do. Because I know that my mum, even though she did do that and she did overwork herself, not fill up, not set her own boundaries around things, I know that my mum didn't want that for me. But I did at one point start to go down that path, and I've had to really, really work to pull myself into the other direction as well. Speaking of which, being self-employed, it is very, very hard to set boundaries around your work. Again, I know that I am living that, and it is when you're self-employed, you do have to work longer hours than other people. You do have to work unconventional times, i.e., I was programming at 9:30 last night. I am doing this podcast at 10:30 on a Sunday. Like, it is part of that. However, it's good to also have boundaries around that time. I.e., I do yoga on a Sunday. Like, that is what I do. At certain times, that's when I do training. I tend to stop replying to messages after 8 o'clock and I tend to wind down. I mean, me talking to myself into a camera is giving me winding down. Even though this is technically work, I don't really see it as work. It's the planning of it, planning of the podcast and planning the bullet points that is work. But this bit isn't. I find it quite fun, to be fair, just to chat shit. But yeah, I have learned a lot more about setting boundaries and going, no, this is my time, this is when I work, this is when I don't work, and all that jazz. Like, no, I don't PT on Wednesdays and Fridays because that's when I do check-ins. So, well, I don't have that appointment, I don't have that time. And it is one of those things, and honestly, it has made me love my job a lot more. I mean, I love my job anyway, but it's helped me really bring the baba boom. It's helped me be a better, like, if you're not, because obviously we're not happy every single day, are we? But if we're not generally happy with our life, like, what is the fucking point? Like, what, like, if you're not, I wouldn't say like happy, because there's always those days in work where you don't really like it. Like when I'm doing my taxes, I don't really like it. There are other days, or social media planning. I think everyone knows that I don't like doing social media planning, but I get it done. There are going to be those days, but if you don't generally like what you do and enjoy what you do, what is the point? Like, I know obviously paying the bills, like, let's be honest, everyone wants to pay the bills, everyone wants to be to a certain amount of comfort. Not everyone wants to be like counting the pennies all the time. But yeah, in terms of the happiness versus comfort, you can always find something else that'll probably pay the same amount or even a little bit less, but the happiness that'll give you will be more. The reason why I stood up so firmly for my boundaries and then actually got like, you know what, I am going to leave, is because I was like, you know what, like, my mental health and my physical health is not worth this. Like, I mean, the money wasn't that great anyway, but I think I was on like pretty much living wage at the time as well. Like, and it wasn't a minimum wage living wage job. But I remember like when living wage came out, I was like, I think I'm only I only got paid like a tiny bit more than like the living wage that was there. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm doing all this work when I could do half of this work and get this a tiny bit less money. Like, it didn't make any sense to me. But hey ho, we live and we learn, don't we? So yeah, if your job is eating into your workouts, set a hard stop. Like, if you work 9 to 5, you work 9 to 5. And yeah, maybe you are finishing something up, but again, like, just finish it up, finish at 1/4 past or like 1/2 past at the latest, and then just leave. And tend not to like start a big job before you're due to end. Maybe look at your emails, maybe like tidy things up and set your to-do list up for tomorrow as well, just for that end part of the day, to set that hard time and to honour it as well. And remember, at the end of the day, like, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it is necessary success. Like, as I said, in fitness journey, in your life, in your career, not working as much is actually, I say is actually, like, again, there's a lot of studies on this, will actually make you more productive, not less productive. And the final thing I want to talk about is how to set and enforce boundaries without guilt. So the first thing is getting clear on your non-negotiables. So what are the things that are important to you? So for example, like things that you refuse to compromise on, basically. So it might be workouts, nutrition, sleep. Now for me, I don't need a great deal of sleep, so I don't mind compromising on sleep. As long as I get like 6 to 7 hours, I can function. That is fine. Obviously, yes, ideally I'd like more, but I have other things that I'd rather prioritise, i.e. my training, my nutrition, my steps. So again, cardio. Personally, I prioritise them over other things. Now, obviously, yes, sleep is important, but again, you need to know you as well and what you struggle with and what you don't really find that hard. So again, it's knowing yourself again. It's knowing yourself on that and setting yourself clear boundaries. I also like to game at least once a week. I like to read multiple times a week. So minimum 3 times a week, I like to sit and read. I like to expand my mind and all that fun stuff. And I do like to get outside on a walk at least once a day, even if I'm in the gym, like until 8:15, 8:30, even 9 if I'm doing cardio. I will still make time, even if it's just like to get outside, take a few deep breaths and go in. I will go outside every single day. Again, it's good for my noggin. And then when you have set those non-negotiables, write them down. And you can even put them on like a screensaver on your phone or something like that, just so you can remember them. Write them down and commit to them. Again, maybe it's time booking them out in your calendar. And again, plan them in advance and all of that fun stuff. Next is communicating your boundaries confidently. That last part of that sentence or statement is super important, because if you're wishy-washy when you're communicating about your boundaries, people are going to see straight through it, and people are going to start pushing it. So, as I was mentioning before, you don't need to explain or justify why you're doing what you're doing. A simple no thanks, or that doesn't work for me, or I'm good. That is enough. You don't have to go into like a spiel about how you're on diet and you're really pushing yourself and stuff like that. You just be like, I'm choosing to do this, I'm really enjoying it, or I'm enjoying the challenge. That's it. Another thing as well is like if someone asks you why you won't skip a workout, like, oh, why can't you move your training to another day? Just say it's important to me. Like, this is important to me. Full stop. And the next thing that's super important as well is follow through with what you say, because people will test your boundaries. People will push and push and push, especially like when it's around like food and drink. People are like, oh, come on, don't be boring. It's surely not going to make a difference. It's only an apple. I remember like that in the office quite a lot. Let's also it's fruit. Why can't you have fruit? And it's like, because I need to track it and I can't be asked tracking it. And it's like, because I don't want it. Like, again, I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to be like the old tracking dessert. I could just be like, I don't want fruit. Like, I'm okay. I don't want it. Like, I've got my food. I've got it all here. And that's what I used to say. I used to have like my meal prep like stacked on my desk, and I'd just be like, I've got my food here. That's what I'm eating today, and that's what I'm eating today, and like that's it. And eventually, like, people just wouldn't offer me food anymore because they're like, oh, she's just eating meal prep and that's that. She's good, and that was I was happy with that. That was sound. And the more consistent you are on this, the more people will respect them and then not push around. Because now, like, if I get offered something, I go, oh, no, thank you. And they go, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, thank you. No, yeah, I'm fine, thanks. And that's it. Like, that's literally all I get. That I don't get like an oh, come on anymore, because people are used to it so much. That it's so much easier. But that easiness now has only come from me pushing through that discomfort, being the weird one, having to put up with the sassy comments, and that's why I'm trying to tell you how to do it as well. And again, this is the reason, because boundaries only work if you enforce them. If you're wishy-washy or you hold up some boundaries but not others, people will get really, really good at pushing those boundaries as well. So how do we start setting boundaries? As I mentioned before about setting a non-negotiable, identify where you need boundaries. Because you might find some things really, really easy. So for example, like you might find food really easy, you don't really have to worry about it. Again, work you might find really easy, you might always get up at 5 and walk out the door, and that's fine. Whereas someone else might really struggle with getting up bang on 5 and walking out. I know I definitely did, especially after coming from that first job and then going into my other job. The last one that I was in before I left the design, I would say design agency, but design career path, I guess. That last agency, that was it. And like, it was amazing that they all just got up at 5 and left. And I was like, oh my God, like this. I mean, obviously on occasion we did have to work overtime and stuff like that, but it was much, much better than my first place that I'd be in there like 2 hours after we finished, sometimes 3 hours. But like every single day, it'd only ever really be a Friday that we'd leave time, and that'd be early. But yeah, so it's setting and identifying and setting where you need boundaries, because again, it might be that with food, you might find peer pressure really easy to cave into, whereas for example someone else might not do. And again, so it depends on what that is, setting where you need boundaries, and then also deciding on your non-negotiables that you will no longer compromise on. So for example, it might be training, it might be going out for a walk, it might be food, and you're like, I am not compromising on this because I want this outcome. I don't want this consequence of not doing these, of not setting those boundaries. You don't want the consequence of not setting them. So it's looking at the reason why as well, and knowing your reason why, which will give you the extra little bit of movement to help you set those boundaries as well. And also practice saying no without guilt. So the first few times that you do this, I mean, to me, because I was full on a people pleaser, and like the first probably like 10-20 times that I said no to people, it did feel awkward every now and again, especially if I haven't had it a while and someone starts to like push my boundaries. I'll start to feel a little bit awkward, but then again, it's just like, I don't like, this is what I do. Like, this is what I do, and it's so ingrained in my identity now that it's a lot easier because it's ingrained in my identity. When it was at the start, and it wasn't really, and it was a very new thing for me too, as well as everyone else. It was a lot harder. It was a lot awkward, a lot more awkward. I did feel like a bitch, whereas now I don't even feel, I don't feel like a bitch. So I'm like, this is what I do. And I mean, if people take it in a negative way, it's obviously not my, it's not my intention, but I've got goals and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get those goals. And remember to hold yourself accountable as well, because the only way that boundaries work is if you respect them, if you enforce them, and if you follow through with them about them. If you spend like the whole night going, no, 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 I don't want that night porn star martini, and then just before the end of the night you accept it, then your friends know, oh, I only need to ask her this many times and then she'll accept it, which means that every time that you go out, they're going to be admiring you until you break. Whereas if you say no and you say no, 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 and that first night you do it, they just go, if I ask her once, she doesn't want it, she's not going to have it, because I've tried breaking her down and she doesn't. So remember that as well. Like, it's the same, like, for example, like, I know obviously people aren't dogs, but dogs do this as well. Like, if they cry so much and then you like do whatever it is that they're crying for, they know that they only need to cry X amount of time before you will get annoyed and eventually like hate what they do. Same with kids as well. Like, kids will, I mean, I know I'm not a parent, so you probably, if anyone's listening to this who is a parent, you'd be like, you're not a parent, so you don't know. But it's like, I used to do it when I was a kid, and I remember like doing this to my mum, where like I'd admire her so much, knowing that I only have to mind her X amount of time and cry and kick off until my mum would cave. And again, it's like, if you're not upholding what you're doing, your kid, your dog, your friend will go, I only need to do this X amount of time and then she'll cave and then I get what I want, or I get her to do what I want, essentially. So that is everything for today. So summarising the podcast, if you want to succeed in fitness or anything in life, you need to set boundaries. You need to protect your time, you need to protect your energy and priorities, like your results depend on it, because they do. If this episode hit home, then screenshot this, take a photo of my like scruffy face on the screen and tag me on stories so I can see it and share it with another woman or another person in general who needs to hear this too. But thank you for listening to me waffle as always. Have a wonderful rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, and I'll see you all next